What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Writing Tips, where I break down tropes and archetypes from your favorite stories in the hopes that you can learn a little bit more about writing. So, a while back, I collaborated with another YouTuber named Robin Sprung, where we worked together on a series of videos based around team archetypes, and we each took turns releasing new videos on different types of teams that exist in storytelling. In that series, I covered the videos on the 5-man band, the Elite Four, and the Magnificent 7 Samurai, while Robin Sprung covered the videos on the Power Trio and the 3+2 team archetypes. For reasons that are still unknown to me, all of Robin's videos on his channel, including his Power Trio and his 3+2 videos, were deleted. I've gotten a few people who have asked me to make a new video on the Power Trio on my own channel to replace Robin's, so without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Here is the Power Trio Archetype. Out of all the ensemble teams used in storytelling, the three most common types of teams seen are teams of 2 characters, teams of 3 characters, and teams of 5 characters, across all genres. The team of 5 we already covered in our 5-man band video. The link is down below if you guys want to go check that out and learn more about that archetype. But today, for this video, we're going to be just focusing on just the team of 3, the Power Trio. Arguably, one of the most common patterns seen in fictional and non-fictional team archetypes. Even though the Power Trio can be written in dozens of different ways and there are a ton of variations, the one thing about each and every Power Trio that always remains the same is that regardless of which version of the trio is being used, there will always be 2 characters in the team who are foils, and they are complete opposites of each other in some way, shape, or form, with the 3rd member of the group serving as the go-between and referee character who balances out the 2 contradicting personalities. That 3rd character is usually the glue that keeps the team together. Whether that peacekeeper is the leader of the group or not is optional. But since there are so many versions of the Power Trio, I am just going to narrow down this list to just a few versions. If you want to go through the whole list on the TV Tropes website, you're more than welcome to go check that out. I'll put the link in the description down for you guys. But for this video, I'm just sticking with 6 subtypes of the Power Trio, so just 6 different versions that I'm going to use as my examples for this video. Especially when you take into consideration that so many of these Power Trios overlap with each other, and one Power Trio can very easily be more than one version at the exact same time. So version number 1, the Freudian Trio. The first subtype that we're going to tackle is the Freudian Trio, which not only serves as the foundation for this team archetype, but is also probably the most commonly used version of the Power Trio in film, TV, books, and games. Based on psychologist Sigmund Freud's theory of personality, the Freudian Trio is made up of 3 characters who each represent a different element of a personality, according to Freud. So there's the id, the emotional part of us that acts on our desires. Then there's the superego, the logical and objective part of us that makes decisions based on cold practicality and just pure intelligence. And lastly, there's the ego, the part of our brain that balances out those 2 extremes and incorporates elements of both logic and emotion into our decision-making process. Personally, I like to refer to this Power Trio subtype by its nickname, the Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, named after the main Power Trio in the original Star Trek TV show, with Spock, aka the superego, being the logical one, McCoy, aka the id, being the emotional one, and Kirk, also known as the ego, being the one to settle the disputes between the group and help keep the peace. There's a plethora of examples that exist in fiction, and it would just take way too long for us to go through all of them, but just to name a couple, in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, more so in the movies than in the books, we have 2 examples of the Power Trio. We have the 3 hunters and the 3 ring bearers. Out of the 3 hunters, Gimli is the boisterous id, Legolas is the calm and cool superego, and Aragorn is the level-headed ego. And in the band of the 3 ring bearers, Gollum is a dishonest and emotionally unstable id, Sam is the trustworthy and practical superego that is the word of reason for the group, and Frodo is the ego that balances them out. In the original trilogy of Star Wars, Han Solo is the id, Princess Leia is the superego, and Luke is the ego that balances them out. The main trio of characters in the Harry Potter saga, known as the Golden Trio, has Ron acting as the sloppy id, Hermione contrasting him as the bookworm superego, and Harry rounding them off as the ego. The Spiderwick Chronicles also has the oldest sister Mallory as the id, and the twins Simon and Jared as the superego and ego respectively. Halo 3 showcased that the righteous and vengeful Arbiter is the emotional id of the group, whereas Master Chief is the stoic and almost robotic superego, and Sergeant Johnson is the down-to-earth equalizer between the two, making him the ego. Version number 2, the comic trio. When it comes to comedies, having your main cast of characters be a comic trio is an almost guarantee within this genre. Here you have the leader, who thinks that they are the smartest member of the team, but in truth, they're sincerely out of touch with reality. Then there's the fool, a complete dingbat who blindly follows the orders of everyone else around them, and then rounding off the comic trio is the only sane man. As the name suggests, this is the only character in the group who has any kind of common sense and acts like a normal person. Despite how practical and level-headed the only sane man is, they pretty much never succeed at stopping their group from committing some kind of harebrained disaster. The most popular and probably the very first example of the comic trio are the Three Stooges, with Curly always being the fool, and Moe and Larry swapping turns as either the leader or the only sane man depending on the skit that they were performing together. Another great live-action example of this archetype in modern cinema is the Wolfpack from the Hangover films, with Phil as the leader, Alan as the fool, and Stu as the only sane man. Not to mention the Golden Girls, with Blanche as the leader, Rose as the fool, and Dorothy as the only sane man. The comic trio has become the bread and butter of many kids' cartoons. Just with Disney alone, you have Mickey, Donald, and Goofy as one group, Huey, Dewey, and Louie as another group, and depending on the skit, all three characters in the group would take turns playing as either the leader, the fool, or the only sane man. Except Goofy. Goofy was always the fool. With Nickelodeon cartoons, you get two examples of the comic trio just in SpongeBob SquarePants alone. Within SpongeBob's neighborhood, you have SpongeBob as the leader, Patrick as the fool, and Squidward as the only sane man. And within the Krusty Krab employee staff, Mr. Krabs is the leader, SpongeBob is the fool, and Squidward is the only sane man. On Cartoon Network, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy has Mandy as the leader, Billy as the fool, and Grim as the only sane man. But sometimes, Mandy and Grim would switch roles depending on the episode and the situation that they were in. There's also the infamous Ed, Edd, and Eddy, with Eddie being the scheming con-man leader, Ed as the stupid fool, and Double D as the nervous only sane man. You also can't forget some classic comic trios like Alvin and the Chipmunks and the Animaniacs. Version number 3, the Beauty, Brains, and Brawn. As the name suggests, the Beauty is unconventionally pretty, popular, and has great social skills that helps the Beauty pull double duty as the heart archetype, meaning they are the most gentle, empathetic, and emotionally supportive of the group. The Brains character fixates themselves with all of the technical skills that help benefit the group, but they're usually awkward when it comes to social interactions. Meanwhile, the Brawn is very straightforward and likes to solve all of their problems with physical aggression. So in other words, the Beauty, Brains, and Brawn type of power trio can also be seen as an all-female group that's made up of a heart, a smart guy, and a big guy. It's very easy for this subtype of the power trio to overlap with the Freudian trio because the Brawn can very easily be seen as the id since they are the impulsive and pleasure-seeking person in the group. The Brain is the superego because they are the intelligent and logical one. And then the Beauty is the ego because they are the soothing, therapeutic influence over the other two personalities. Just within the realm of cartoons, you have a ton of examples of the Beauty, Brains, and Brawn archetype. In Alvin and the Chipmunks, out of the Chipettes, you have Brittany as the Beauty, Jeanette as the Brains, and Eleanor as the Brawn. With the Powerpuff Girls, Blossom serves the role of the practical Brains, Bubbles is the airheaded Beauty, and Buttercup is the rude and tomboyish Brawn. Younger audiences will recognize Gru's daughters from Despicable Me fulfilling this archetype, with little energetic Agnes being the Beauty, Margot as the snarky Brains, and Edith as the tricky and tomboyish Brawn. With Disney's Encanto, the Madrigal sisters portray this archetype very well, with Isabel as the Beauty, Mirabel as the Brains, and Louisa as the Brawn. In a lesser known example, Ginger's 3 chicken friends in the movie Chicken Run involve Babs as the ditzy but kind-hearted Beauty, Mac as the Scottish inventor and technological Brains, and Bunty as the tough and aggressive Brawn. Moving on up the age bracket in the adult category of animation, you have the Vampire Council of Sisters in Netflix's Castlevania, with Lenore as the alluring and seductive Beauty, Morana as the strategic Brains, and Striga as the berserker Brawn. Transitioning over to film and television, The eponymous 3 female spies from Charlie's Angels are one of the best known examples of the beauty, brains, and brawn, with the TV version of Kelly being the beauty, Sabrina being the brains, and Jill as the brawn, while the 2000 film shows Natalie as the beauty, Dylan as the brains, and Alex as the brawn. Version number 4, the Terrible Trio. The Terrible Trio is probably the simplest of these power trio subtypes. The only criteria that you really have to follow is you have to have one character who is the evil mastermind and or boss who comes up with a scheme, while the other 2 characters are just their bumbling henchmen that go about trying to bring that master plan to life. Just like with comic trios, Terrible Trios are a very popular choice for villains in children's cartoons. It's also pretty common for the Terrible Trio to overlap with the comic trio or Freudian Trio as well. Disney movies by themselves have the hyenas Shinzi, Banzai, and Ed. You also have Ursula and her 2 eels Flotsam and Jetsam, Hades and his minions Pain and Panic, Cruella de Vil and her 2 burglars Jasper and Horace, the Sheriff of Nottingham and his 2 vulture guards Nutsy and Trigger, and in a way, the Wicked Stepmother and her 2 daughters Anastasia and Drizella count as well. Probably the most popular example of the Terrible Trio exists in Harry Potter, with the idiotic Slytherin bullies, Crabbe and Goyle, being led by the entitled jerk Draco Malfoy. Version number 5, the Knight, Knave, and Squire. Another version of the Freudian Trio, but more oriented towards the action-adventure genre, the Knight, Knave, and Squire is a type of power trio that focuses more on fighters and adventurers specifically. The Knight is the straight arrow with a strong moral compass who has a code of honor that demands them to always stick to the rules and they always fight fair.
When we fight, we face our enemy head on. When we take their life, we look them in the eye with courage and respect. Only cowards strike from the shadows.
Meanwhile, the Knave is the complete opposite. They are rogues who don't have any problems with lying, cheating, or tricking their opponents. They don't care about the rules or the standards, because for them, it's all about the results. They don't fight pretty, they fight to win.
Bold warrior you are, attacking a man when his guard's down.
It's time to attack a man.
Then there's the Squire, an amateur who is uninitiated in the art of heroism and is still learning the ropes. They often look up to the more experienced knight as a role model. One of the best examples of this power trio is in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, where Will is the noble knight,
You cheated.
Pirate.
Jack is the sneaky knave,
Now, as long as you're just hanging there, pay attention. The only rules that really matter are these. What a man can do, and what a man can't do.
and Elizabeth is the noob Squire. Another solid example is in the first Deadpool movie, with Colossus being the moral knight, Deadpool himself being the unapologetic knave, and Negasonic Teenage Warhead being the Squire still in training. In the Star Wars The Clone Wars TV show, the main power trio of Jedi revolves around Obi-Wan being the gallant and virtuous knight,
You can kill me, but you will never destroy me. It takes strength to resist the dark side. Only the weak embrace it.
Anakin as the unpredictable and pragmatic knave,
Come on then. Who will strike first and brand themselves a cold-blooded killer?
Anakin. What? He was gonna blow up the ship.
and his apprentice Ahsoka as the Squire.
You need to remain calm. Think. Feel the intention of the trooper who will fire first. Begin.
Version number 6, the Weird Sisters. A variant of the power trio that appears more in mythology than it does anywhere else in fiction. But what this trope requires is that there are 3 mystical or supernatural women who are either fairy godmothers, witches, or soothsayers. They don't have to be biological sisters that are related to each other, but they can be. The Weird Sisters are known for being neutral players in the story, and they are morally gray characters who are neither heroic nor evil, as they have aided both virtuous and cruel people throughout history. Usually, their role in a story is that of a clairvoyant prophet or a group of fortune tellers who can see into the future and or predict a person's fate. Yet, they do not interfere or meddle with fate or history directly. They may also demand a very heavy toll or sacrifice from those who seek out their transcendent knowledge. The three witches in Macbeth are probably the most famous example of this trope in literature. In multiple mythologies around the world, each culture refers to their version of the Weird Sisters by a different name. For example, the Greeks call them the Moirai, the Hecate sisters, or the Stygian witches, while the Romans called them the Fates. The Norsemen called them the Three Norns. Meanwhile, the TV show Gargoyles literally just calls them the Weird Sisters. If you want to learn more about the Power Trio archetype, go ahead and take a look at the TV Tropes website, where they have a whole library of knowledge dedicated to tropes and archetypes within storytelling. If you're interested in learning more about writing techniques, go ahead and subscribe, so that you can get notified when I post a new video. Leave a comment down below and list off any fictional ensembles that you think might be a power trio. Don't forget to like this video, and I will catch you guys next time.